Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're going to be looking at this guide, Advanced Academic Writing Mastery, a PhD Fellow's Guide.
Okay.
It's by Muammar Lone, and it seems like you're really interested in the scope of it, how PhD fellows are actually using this thing.
Yeah.
What kind of impact it's having, how detailed it gets, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then like the bigger picture stuff, like the author's intention
Yeah.
and how it benefits the whole academic community.
Right. Yeah. No, that's all really interesting stuff, especially with this guide. It's gotten a lot of attention.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For me, what really stood out was it's not just like your typical academic writing, you know?
Hmm.
It actually goes into like the digital side of scholarship too, like building an online presence and even grant writing.
Oh, wow.
It seems like Lon really wanted to make this like the ultimate resource for PhD fellows, which is pretty ambitious.
It is ambitious, yeah.
Yeah.
But from the stuff you sent me, it seems like he might have actually done it. The scope of this thing is huge. It covers like the entire writing journey of PhD fellow, from basic skills all the way to those advanced publication strategies.
Okay, so break it down for me. What exactly makes this guide so comprehensive?
Well, first off, it's structured in a way that makes sense, you know? It helps you learn step by step. It's got 4 main parts and a whopping 16 chapters.
Whoa, 16 chapters. That's a lot.
It is, but don't worry. It's designed so you can pick and choose what you need based on your experience.
Oh, okay, that's good. So it's not like everyone's starting from scratch.
Exactly. Some people might need help with the basics, while others are ready for those hardcore publishing strategies.
Right. And you mentioned those advanced strategies. What does the guide say about that?
Well, it goes deep into stuff like crafting really strong narratives for your research, writing for different people and purposes, navigating the crazy world of academic publishing,
Yeah.
and even maximizing the impact of your research.
Yeah, it's not just about writing a good paper. It's about making sure that paper actually gets read and does something.
Exactly. And Lone doesn't skimp on the details either. We're talking like 475 to 590 pages, packed with practical tools and frameworks.
Wow, that's serious. But we both know a big page count doesn't always mean quality. Does this guide actually deliver?
From what I've seen, it really does. It goes way beyond just surface-level advice. For example, it introduces this PRISM framework for structuring literature reviews, which can be a game changer for researchers who are drowning in information.
I've heard of PRISM, but I'll be honest, I never really understood how to use it. Does the guide explain it in a way that makes sense?
It does. It breaks it down step by step with clear explanations and real examples.
Okay, that's good. And what else?
It also has this weave method for developing strong arguments in your literature reviews.
Okay, now I'm interested. What's so special about the weave method?
Think of it as a 5-step process. First, you weigh the evidence,
Okay.
like really looking at the quality and relevance of each source.
Yeah.
Then you evaluate the methods used in each study, thinking about their strengths and weaknesses.
Makes sense.
Next, you move on to analyzing the findings. Not just reporting them, but digging deep into the data to see what connections you can find. Then you try to visualize those connections, maybe using like concept maps or diagrams to get a bigger picture.
Interesting.
And finally, you figure out the key implications of your synthesis, asking yourself, so what? What does this all mean for my field? For practice? For future research?
That's actually a really helpful way to think about putting research together. I can see how that would be super valuable for PhD students who are just starting to wrap their heads around literature reviews.
Right.
It sounds like the guide really pushes you to go beyond just summarizing information and actually analyze and synthesize it.
Exactly. And that's one of the things that makes this guide stand out. It's not just about teaching PhD fellows how to write. It's about teaching them how to think critically and make a real contribution to their field.
It seems like that critical thinking part is like woven through the whole guide,
It is.
which makes sense. You
Right.
can't write something impactful if you're not thinking critically.
Exactly. And you see this again in the guide's approach to turning those literature review summaries into arguments. It introduces this clear model which encourages PhD fellows to move beyond summarizing and actually develop their own arguments.
You've got my attention with this clear model. What is it all about?
Well, think of it as a framework for going from summarizing to arguing. C stand for contextualize,
Okay.
meaning you ground your argument in the research that's already out there.
Got it.
L is for link, where you connect your argument to the research question or problem.
Okay.
E is for explain, where you clearly say what you think and why.
Mm-hmm.
A is for analyze, where you take a critical look at the evidence and any counterarguments.
I see.
And finally, R is for recommend, where you offer some specific implications or suggestions based on what you found.
So it's like building your case, presenting your evidence and convincing your audience to see your point of view.
Exactly. And the guide gives you specific ways to do this effectively in an academic setting. It's
Hmm.
all about making arguments that are both strong and well supported.
I'm starting to see how this guide could really change the game. For PhD fellows who want their writing to make a real impact, it's not just about following the rules. It's about thinking deeply, analyzing carefully, and communicating clearly and persuasively.
You got it. It's not just about personal success, though. Lone seems to want to raise the bar for scholarship as a whole.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Like, if all PhD fellows could write clearly and with impact, it would benefit everyone in academia.
For sure. It's like a chain reaction.
Hmm.
Better writing leads to better communication of research, which could even lead to like real-world solutions.
Exactly. And this guide seems to be built with that bigger impact in mind. It's not just about helping individual PhD students succeed, it's about contributing to a higher standard of research overall.
It's almost like Lone is saying, hey, academic writing doesn't have to be boring and confusing. We can actually make it interesting, accessible, and make a difference.
Right. And that reminds me of something we touched on earlier. The guides focus on the digital side of things.
Oh, yeah. I was really curious about that. It seems like a lot of academics are still stuck in that old school mindset of just publishing in journals. But nowadays, building an online presence is super important.
Absolutely. And Lone gets that. The guide spends a lot of time on helping PhD fellows build their digital academic identity. It covers everything from making a website to using social media to share research.
So it's like a crash course in digital scholarship, all within this bigger guide on academic writing.
Exactly. It shows how holistic this guide is. It knows that in today's world, success isn't just about publishing in journals. It's about using every tool you have to get your research out there, talk to a bigger audience, and ultimately have a bigger impact.
That's pretty forward thinking, especially for a guide aimed at PhD fellows who are just starting their careers. It's setting them up for success in a world that's changing so fast.
Exactly. And speaking of setting PhD fellows up for success, one of the things that impressed me was how detailed the guide gets on practical stuff like grant writing.
Ugh, grant writing. The bane of every researcher's existence. It can really make or break your career.
Totally. And that's why this section of the guide is so useful. It doesn't just give you general tips, it gives you specific frameworks and strategies that PhD fellows can use to write grant proposals that stand out.
Okay, give me an example.
Sure, the guide introduces something called the grant model.
Ooh, love a good acronym. What does GRANT stand for?
It stands for Gap, Research Approach, Need, and Team.
So it's about identifying a gap in the research, explaining how your research will fill that gap, outlining your plan, showing why your research is important, and highlighting the strengths of your team.
Exactly. And the guide goes deep into each of those elements, giving you tips and examples to help you write a proposal that hits all the right marks.
So it's not enough to just have a good idea. You have to know how to sell it to the people with the money.
You got it. And that brings us to another key theme that runs through the whole guide, the focus on impact. Lone really emphasizes writing in a way that not only advances knowledge, but also has the potential to change things.
Yeah, it makes sense. Why do all this research if it's just going to sit on a shelf?
Right. And the guide gives you concrete ways to maximize your impact, from choosing the right journals to telling stories that resonate with a wider audience. One thing I found really helpful was the guide's focus on the POWER approach for writing impact statements.
Another acronym. Lay it on me.
POWER stands for Problem, Opportunity, Worth, Execution, and Results.
Okay, so you're basically defining the problem your research addresses, highlighting the potential solutions, showing how valuable your research is, outlining your plan, and predicting the long-term results.
Exactly. And the guide tells you how to address each of these in a way that's convincing and compelling.
It's like Lone is saying, don't just tell me what you're going to do, show me how it's going to make a difference.
Exactly. And I think that's a really important message for new PhD fellows. It's not enough to just do good research. You have to be able to communicate its value and potential impact to the world. And this guide gives you the tools to do that.
It's like a masterclass in not just academic writing, but also strategic thinking and communication.
I agree. It's clear that a lot of work went into this guide. It's comprehensive, well-structured, and full of practical advice that can really help PhD fellows and the whole academic community.
And I like how it's not just theory. You said earlier, it includes practical tools and resources. What are some examples of those?
Sure. There's things like a framework for budgeting grant proposals, protocols for handling peer review, and even a checklist for building your online
It's
presence.
like having a mentor guiding you through every step of your academic journey.
That's a great way to put it. And it gets to the heart of the guide's intention, which is to help PhD fellows succeed not just in their writing, but in their whole careers.
And that success ultimately leads to a stronger, more exciting academic community.
Right, and that's why resources like this are so important. They have the potential to raise the standard of research and help researchers make a real difference.
It's like Lone wants to transform academic writing from a chore into a powerful tool for communication impact and even social change.
I completely agree. It's inspiring to see someone so dedicated to helping PhD fellows find their voice and make a mark on the world.
Speaking of inspiration, I was really intrigued by the guide's approach to collaborative writing. With so much research being done in teams these days, it seems like a crucial part of academic writing that often gets overlooked.
You're absolutely right. It's rare to see single author research articles anymore. Collaboration is key in most fields.
Exactly. So how does the guide handle this important aspect of modern research?
It has a whole section dedicated to collaborative writing with advice and frameworks to help PhD fellows navigate the ups and downs of working with others.
Can you give me an example? I'm always up for a good acronym.
Of course. The guide introduces the team framework for creating a strong foundation for collaboration.
Okay, I'm listening. What does TEAM stand for?
It stands for task distribution, expectation, alignment, authorship management, and milestone tracking.
So basically, it's about defining roles and responsibilities, making sure everyone is on the same page, figuring out authorship, and setting clear goals to keep the project moving forward.
Exactly. And the guide goes deeper than that, giving strategies for dealing with common problems like different writing styles, integrating various contributions, and managing authorship.
It sounds like it really gets into the nitty-gritty of collaborative writing, which can be so helpful for PhD fellows who are new to working in teams.
I agree. It's one thing to talk about collaboration, but it's another thing to give people the tools to make it work. And this guide does a great job of that.
It seems like this guide is really in tune with the reality of modern research, where working together is essential for tackling complex issues and making real progress.
Absolutely. That's one of the things that makes it so valuable. It's not just a theory book, it's a practical guide that gives PhD fellows the skills they need to succeed in today's research environment.
And I was fascinated by the guide's unique take on storytelling in academic writing. To be honest, I was a bit skeptical at first. It seemed strange to use storytelling techniques in research papers.
I understand your skepticism, but the guide makes a strong argument for the power of narrative in academic writing.
Okay, you've got my attention. How does it justify using storytelling in research?
It argues that a good story can make research more engaging, memorable, and impactful. Think about it. A well-told story pulls you in, makes you care about the characters, and keeps you hooked. Why can't research papers do the same?
I see your point. But how do you tell a story in a research paper without losing that academic rigor?
That's where the guide gets really interesting. It gives you specific ways to incorporate storytelling techniques while keeping a high level of scholarly integrity.
So it's not about turning research papers into fiction. It's about using storytelling elements to make the research more compelling and accessible.
Exactly. And the guide gives practical examples of how to do this. It encourages researchers to think of their paper as having a narrative arc, like a novel or a film.
That's a cool idea. So instead of just presenting facts, you're weaving them into a story that connects with the reader on an emotional level.
Precisely. And the guide suggests using techniques like repeating key points and using action words to make the research come alive.
Okay, now it's starting to click. So it's not about sacrificing accuracy or objectivity, it's about finding ways to present information in a way that's both informative and engaging.
Exactly. And the guide doesn't just tell you to do it, it shows you how with specific examples and practical strategies.
That's what I like about this guide. It's not just theory, it's advice you can use to improve your writing right away. It's like having a toolbox full of narrative techniques ready to use on your next paper or presentation.
I like that analogy. And this focus on storytelling goes beyond just research papers. The guide applies these principles to conference presentations, grant proposals, even blog posts.
So it's about making all types of academic communication more engaging and impactful.
Precisely. It's about understanding that communication is key to moving research forward and making a difference in the world.
This has been a really insightful deep dive. It seems like this guide could really change how PhD fellows and researchers think about academic writing.
I couldn't agree more. It's a comprehensive, practical, and inspiring resource that can help researchers at all levels write better and have a bigger impact.
And speaking of impact, this guide itself seems like it's going to have a big impact on the academic community.
Absolutely. And it's initiatives like this that really raise the bar for research and make academic writing more accessible and impactful. If we want to see more resources like this, supporting organizations like gai-observe.online, which is dedicated to bringing tools like this to researchers, can make a real difference.
That's a great point. It's through working together that we can keep supporting innovation and excellence in academic writing. And on that note, I think it's time to move on to one last, but equally important part of the guide. Its focus on building a strong digital identity online. A strong digital identity online. It sounds kind of futuristic, but I guess in today's world, it's becoming pretty important for academics.
It really is. You know, those days of researchers hiding away in their offices with their work buried in libraries, those days are over.
Yeah, times have changed.
Researchers today need to be part of the online world.
So it's not just about publishing your research. It's about making sure people actually see it and engage with it.
Yeah, exactly. And this guide shows PhD fellows how to build a strong online presence that can really boost their work and connect them with people all over the world.
Okay, so how do you actually do that? What does the guide recommend?
It starts with the basics, like creating a professional website or an online portfolio to show off your research interests, publications, and all that.
So it's like your online resume for academia.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then it goes further encouraging PhD fellows to join online communities in their field, write blog posts or forum posts, and even use social media like Twitter or LinkedIn to share their findings and talk to other researchers.
It sounds like Lone wants PhD fellows to become thought leaders, not just researchers.
Exactly. And the guide gives you tips on how to do that. For example, it suggests ways to write engaging social media posts that explain your research in a way that anyone can understand.
That's something I think a lot of academics struggle with, making their research understandable to people outside their field.
Yeah, it's a tough skill. And the guide recognizes that. It even talks about using visuals like infographics or charts to make research easier to understand and share online.
Makes sense. A picture's worth 1,000 words, right?
Yeah.
And online, you really need to grab people's attention quickly.
Exactly. And it's not just about promoting yourself either. The guide emphasizes using online platforms to have meaningful conversations with other researchers, work on projects together, and even participate in citizen science initiatives.
So it's about building a community, not just a personal brand.
Precisely. It's about understanding that research isn't a solo mission anymore. It's a collaborative thing that needs open communication and sharing of knowledge.
It seems like Lone wants to make academia more open, accessible, and collaborative.
Absolutely. And this guide, with its focus on digital scholarship and community engagement, seems like a big step in the right direction.
You know, we've talked about so much the frameworks, the impact, the digital stuff.
Yeah.
It makes me wonder, what was Lone's real goal in creating this guide?
That's a good question, and I think the answer is right there in the title, Advanced Academic Writing Mastery, a PhD Fellow's Guide.
It's not just about teaching PhD fellows how to write. It's about helping them master academic communication in every way.
Exactly. It's about giving them the tools to become amazing communicators who can shape their fields and make a real difference.
And that's something worth supporting, don't you think?
Absolutely. Initiatives like gai-observe.online are so important. They give us a way to share resources like this guide and make them available to everyone. Supporting organizations like this is how we can all help improve academic writing and scholarship.
That's a great point. It's by working together that we can raise the bar for academic communication and help researchers make a real impact. Well, this has been a really insightful deep dive. I'm seriously impressed with this guide. It's obvious how much work and passion went into making it. It's a real gift to the academic community, and I think it's going to have a lasting impact.
I totally agree. It's great to see such a practical and forward-thinking approach to academic writing. I'm sure PhD fellows who use this guide will be ready for anything in today's academic world.
Thanks to everyone for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you found it as interesting and helpful as we did.
And to all our listeners, Happy New Year 2025. May it be a year of amazing discoveries and impactful writing.
We'll see you next time for another deep dive into the world of knowledge and ideas.